people may indeed riot, but they'll be rioting to get food and then take that food home, not destroy statues. They won't be going at things at a cultural level that way, nor will they be too inclined to be directed. All right, and so we're also going to run into this situation that exists here in the United States. And we didn't see it in the BLM days, but they really wanted to do it. The goal for one of the goals that they attempted to reach was to create a condition wherein the mass of white men that are hunters would come out and would fight with the BLM people and try and calm or take over the cities, such that they could then to come in and take over, right? That was the whole thing. Partition the United States. They wanted to partition us into manageable groups, just the way they do Korea, Vietnam, all of this, right? Okay, it didn't work. Now here's their issue. They put all that money into BLM. This is just a strategic analysis in the tactics. They put all that money into BLM. It's wasted. They shot their wad. They destroyed a few statues, and everybody said, okay, now what, right? But here's the thing. The BLM people now have other concerns that are the same as are affecting everybody else, and that is food availability. The food supplies are being trashed. The ability to get energy is being destroyed. And when the economy fully goes down the way it is in South Africa and a lot of these other countries, based on the crash of the fiat currency and incompetent management that we see these guys putting in everywhere, it's not going to be a situation of all of us crying here in the United States, oh, UN, come and save us, because we've got all of these people that are hunters, okay? And they're going to go out and they'll shoot deer in your local city to get food, right? So you'll see deer shot in your park and gutted and taken for food as this crisis goes, because there's a huge amount of deer out there. And no, I do not believe the statements being made the hunters in the United States form a very unique army, all right? This unique army is trained by the nature of hunting and the rifles that they have, the long barrel rifles, to hit targets 400 to 800 yards away, okay? And I've got a Marlin 1895 that has high discharge 45 calibers. And I've hit at 1,000 yards what I aimed at consistently 3 out of 5 times. Okay, and I'm not particularly good, and I'm mostly blind in my right eye. So we have more men here trained at long distance shooting than any other army that may exist on the planet. And even worse, these men are not under the control of a central authority.
Right.
So that scares the absolute piss out of the Khazarians. They won't send in anybody here because UN troops, if they were to come in from Vancouver, BC, might make it survive those 600 miles or whatever it is to get down here.
Not very well. I think when it comes to that, and I heard this statistic or read this statistic, just the hunters alone in the state of Minnesota, just one state, if you put them all together, they constitute the 5th largest standing army in the world.
Yeah.
So and that's one state, and I'm going to tell you, they hunt everywhere.
And I live out here in the wild, right? I live on the coast of the continent, and on the Olympic Peninsula, and it's all Khazarian mafia through the federal government locked up preserve land, and so lots of people come out here to hunt, and so I know a lot of hunters, and you know. 22 Raptor if you're going to, take on the federal government.
Right.
And no, it doesn't work that way, guy. You're really stupid if you think that. I mean, that was the tactics we tried to use, that the Khazarian mafia tried to get the military to use in Vietnam, and it does not work against a determined enemy that way. And so, in my opinion, they won't invade. We won't have that phase of the Cultural Revolution, because we did not get an ignition here in BLM riots the way that they got the ignition in China in the South, in Guangdong, where they started that movement of the Cultural Revolution. It actually ignited the population. It was because of the very, very, very effective never before seen propaganda effort that preceded the direct action. Here we have them out there on Twitter pimping the trans and all of this, and they're getting the shit stomped out of them. They're getting pushback, right? We're not taking this stuff. We're not going to swallow that kind of propaganda. And now I actually think that if we were to focus and challenge these people on the idea of them being victims of Munchausen by proxy. So imagine a situation where you had an elected official. And so I put this to ChatGPT this way.
And by the way, we should define Munchausen's. As I understand it,
sure,
Munchausen's is a person who creates their own disease. I mean, they'll even go so far as to contaminate their own blood, so they get sick, so they can have attention and help from doctors and whatever. But Munchausen's by proxy is when you do it to somebody else.
Correct. And usually, though, in Munchausen's by proxy, it's a sort of an unconscious kind of a thing, transmitting the signals to the ill person, right? It can be that way. It's not usually that active. Extreme cases
can be overt, though.
Yeah, I was going to say extreme cases are overt, but a lot of the stuff that Lin Biao discovered was this unconscious level of communication of what he called the invisible illness or the ghost disease, right? And so he's been able to do it that way, but Munchausen's by proxy is extremely powerful in the hands of as a weaponized form here, and we're dealing with that now. But here's the thing about it: if it were any other disease other than a mental, and also a lot of other mental conditions. So if Fetterman gets up there and was able to stand up and drooling all over himself and couldn't get a word out, there would be questions about his mental capacity, if he's even alive, right? And so there would be legitimate efforts you could make as a politician or a constituent to get that guy removed because his brain is damaged. So those same legal and medical avenues can be used against existing politicians that are exhibiting being victims of Munchausen's by proxy, of this weaponized Munchausen's by proxy. So they did this. They said trans exist. They said, you must accept trans because it's existent and it's this natural thing, and they built up an ethos around that. But their very premise was that trans existed as a medical condition, which it does not. But let's just assume that it did. Let's take that same avenue, and we can say weaponized, and use that word, weaponized Munchausen's by proxy exist, and you are its victim. And we can't trust your mental acuity while you're functioning as its victim. So in this school board meeting where you're a school board guy promoting trans crap,
I get it.
And we know trans to be weaponized MBP, we insist that you take a panel of at least 3 psychiatrists or mental health workers to assure the public that you're not functioning as a victim of weaponized MBP. And we have a trail that goes all the way back to 1966 in China, and we have the threads that show that the Chinese are using it on us now. That some Chinese guy could come over from China and he could throw it into a room with politicians, and a gas would come on out and would make them all batshit crazy. They wouldn't necessarily know they were batshit crazy from the Chinese disease, from the gas. But we saw it. We have it on camera. We see them acting that way afterwards.
Yeah.
We can call them on it medically. And we can just stand up in school board meetings and say, no, this cannot proceed. This whole meeting has to stop right now until you people get certified that you're mentally healthy.
Only problem I see with that plan is that the psychiatrists have become victimized by Munchausen.
It doesn't matter at this stage, okay? Even if that's the case, the mere fact that we're doing this and bringing it up, and they have
I see.
Okay, even the trapped psychiatrist will have to work his ass off to justify this guy promoting trans to your schools as being legit and mentally healthy, and it won't fly. And no psychiatrist, look at the doctors you know, and put 3 of them in a room and say, you guys have to come up with a consensus that fucker is mentally healthy. You've got to assure us of this, that he's not functioning under MBP. So do it.
Yeah,
and your reputation, your life, all of everything is at risk because the public is looking at you.
Wow. Yeah.